And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lowdown Podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Lakers insider for Lakers Daily. Today on the show, there ain't shit to talk about. There is nothing worth, there's nothing new to report on. There is nothing, breaking to hit on right now. It would be hilarious if right after I said that, we got some breaking news, but I don't think that is going to be the case, and I don't think that is going to be the case for the foreseeable future. Do I want to make the joke? I think I'm contractually obligated to make the joke.
Run it back! Run it back! Run it back! Run it back! Run it back!
Man, they look so happy there. Although if I look like Aaron Donald with my shirt off, I would be happy all the time. But no, today on the show, I've talked a lot about, kind of the situation. I've reported a lot about the situation. I haven't really, I don't believe, given my actual thoughts and analysis on the players that could potentially or have been linked to the Lakers to this point. So I think that's what we're going to do here on this episode. Is we're going to power rank the guys who have been most closely linked to the Lakers, whether it's via trade or free agency. The list that I have right now is, in no particular order: Jerami Grant, Bruce Brown, Dorian Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson, Gary Trent Jr. If you guys have any names that kind of hit you while I'm talking here, cool. Let her rip, and I'll tell you where they would fit into my list. But I guess that's going to be the bulk of the the actual show here, and then obviously if you guys have any questions or comments that you leave in the live comments here on YouTube, I will obviously get to those. A quick reminder, please do hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. That is right below right below this window that you're watching on. If you guys are watching live on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@LakersLounge and hit the subscribe button there. Hit the like button as well. And then also keep telling your friends. The show is growing quite a bit. And it is, word of mouth is kind of the strongest way for this thing to grow. So tell your friends that you love this show, tell your enemies that you hate it. And then if you guys are listening to this in the morning via podcast, please do hit subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcasts. And obviously I would prefer that it would be on Odyssey. All right. So without any further ado, I'm going to rank the potential acquisitions that I have heard linked to the Lakers so far this offseason the most prevalently. And I'm going to be factoring in what it would take to get said player, and obviously fit and that player's talent level and contract and all of that as well. So let's get to it. Coming in at first, oh, you know what? Good job, you guys. Look at this. Paul Flanagan, whom I may be the same person. Kuzma should be in here. I will move him. I would add him to the list. And I think, I think all right. I'm not going to say where I'm going to put him quite yet, but I just added him to the list. So the first player on my list here is going to be Gary Trent Jr. And this is a pretty straightforward reason why. He doesn't cost anything. You can bring in Gary Trent Jr. He's a free agent. Now, you would need to move some contracts around. You would need to shed Cam Reddish's contract. You would need to shed Jackson Hayes' contract. But if you're able to do that, and, if you wanted some extra wiggle room, I guess you could move Christian Wood as well. But if you're able to move those contracts and free up enough money to bring in, get Gary Trent Jr. at that $5.2 million taxpayer mid-level exception, and he were to accept it, now that's a little tricky. I'll talk about why here in a second. He, to me, is the most painless and seamless transaction that the Lakers could make at present. This could be done yesterday. All it would take would be a change in their stance of moving draft capital for the sake of shedding salary. You send those three guys out to, the Siberia that is the Utah Jazz, and you bring in Gary Trent Jr., who would immediately become your starting shooting guard. And yeah, there are still some defensive questions there with Austin Reeves and Gary Trent Jr. as your starting backcourt. Gary Trent Jr. hasn't played much defense in the last couple of years, so that's something to keep in mind there. But he's a knockdown 3-point shooter. He's a really cool player. Like, he's one of those players that over the course of his career, every time I watch him play or his teams play, I find that my eyes are just kind of drawn to him on a basketball court. He's just a fun player to watch play basketball. And again, like, most importantly here, you don't need to break up your rotation to bring him in. You could replace Christian Wood. You could replace Jackson Hayes. You could replace Cam Reddish, especially because I don't think he's an NBA player. You could swap out those guys, and you could bring in Gary Trent Jr., and then you would also have 2 veteran minimum contracts to be able to use on players that replace those guys that you would have moved to bring them in. Now, the one obvious concern here with Trent Jr. is that he was expecting like $25 million from the Toronto Raptors when he was opting out. He completely misinterpreted the market. He like, his agency, or the I think it's Clutch. They have some now. They have been able to pull rabbits out of hats this year. Gary, they were able to get Miles Bridges back to Charlotte on a 3-year, $75 million contract, even though he is seen as absolutely untouchable throughout the league. They were, they've done some stuff out there that got players paid in ways that you may not have anticipated. I definitely didn't anticipate. Now, this is much tougher because of the time of, the where we currently sit in the offseason. There just aren't very many teams that are going to be looking to add a Gary Trent Jr. at the number that he's looking to get. So it might come down to him looking around at the market and taking as close, the highest number that he can get that is going to offer him the most minutes. And for the Lakers here, I believe they can offer, in terms of teams that, can win, and in terms of teams that have a need at shooting guard, the Lakers can offer, I believe, the most of any realistic team here. The other team he's been linked to has been the Milwaukee Bucks. They would also be a taxpayer mid-level exception type of offer is what they would have to make. So the Lakers, would just have to sell him on the idea of come to LA, and if you help us win, players who help us win tend to get paid. We've seen it with Malik Monk. We see where Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's career has gone too. Any number of guys over the years, when, Trevor Ariza made an entire career out of winning a championship with the Lakers against Orlando. So like you look at, the players historically who have come to LA and been popular and been productive and helped the Lakers win, they typically wind up getting a pretty solid offer the following year. And I think that would be the whole selling point that I would be making if I were Rob Pelinka. And so for that reason, for all of those reasons, I would say that Gary Trent Jr. would probably cost you a second rounder in order to get off of, and it could even be one of those fake conditional second rounders that get offered. But those teams that have cap space available to them, you banish those 3 guys who took their player options this year, and you bring in a starting caliber shooting guard, a player who plays a position of need right now, who fits like fairly well still with what the Lakers want to do, especially offensively. Offensively, it's a perfect fit. My goodness, he would be an incredible fit. knockdown, catch and shoot type of threat, the kind of shooter that defenses have to kind of, has a little gravity to him too. He would fit absolutely perfectly as the starting shooting guard next year. And then, if the Lakers were able to move D'Angelo Russell and they're able to get more perimeter defensive help to make up for Gary Trent Jr., if you start Trent alongside Austin and you're able to move D'Lo for something, you would be able to play Jared Vanderbilt at the 3 and provide that perimeter defense out there because of how well Austin shoots the ball, how well Trent shoots the ball. If LeBron shoots the ball the way that he did last year, and if AD, who I thought actually shot the ball significantly better last year, I just thought he looked a lot more comfortable out there. And the word is that he has shed some poundage this offseason in the hopes that he'll be playing a little bit more power forward this year. If all of those things come to be and all of those guys shoot the ball even decently next year, you can have one non-floor spacer in Jared Vanderbilt and still be able to get away with it. So I really like Gary Trent Jr.'s game. If the Lakers can take advantage of an unfortunate situation for him in free agency, that's exactly the kind of move that, again, the Lakers should have made yesterday. And by yesterday, I mean yesterday specifically, but whenever you're listening to this, this should be done already. Like this is a no-brainer move. If he is available for the $5.2 million taxpayer mid-level exception, which sometimes these guys do surprise and they wind up getting more money than you typically think. But in this case, if he is available at that number, the Lakers need to be moving heaven and earth. And it wouldn't even be heaven and earth. It'd be freaking Christian Wood. I guess heaven. And then it would be moving Cam Reddish and it would be moving Jackson Hayes to get those guys out of there to free up the amount of money that you need to be able to bring in a Gary Trent Jr. It just makes too much sense to me. It should be done already. And maybe that's the reason it isn't done, is because of how much sense it makes to me. The next player I have on my list here, this might be a little controversial, but we'll see, is Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown makes $23 million this year. It's a $23 million expiring contract. The Lakers obviously got to see the absolute best basketball that Bruce Brown has ever played in his life. When he just absolutely torched D'Angelo Russell and the Lakers in that Western Conference Finals a couple of years ago. He is an absolute dog defensively. He has some on-ball chops as well. And I think would fit even better than Gary Trent Jr. at the shooting guard if the Lakers were to make this move. It would probably cost you D'Angelo Russell. You would probably have to send D'Lo to a third team, which is potentially the holdup here. It would probably also cost you Rui, who the Toronto Raptors I'm told. And I don't know if it would take much draft capital beyond that, like maybe a couple second rounders, because Bruce Brown makes as much as he does, because he's in this expiring contract. I just don't think the Toronto Raptors are getting first rounder type offers for Bruce Brown. So if you're able to turn D'Angelo Russell, who you're looking to trade anyway, and Rui Hachimura, who would hurt. Like I would really like to see Rui in JJ Redick's system, but if you're able to turn those guys into Bruce Brown, and you're able to start Jared Vanderbilt, and you're able to start, and then you obviously have Austin and LeBron and AD out there, like that's a pretty damn good starting five, and I think Brown helps make up for some of the defensive concerns there. You're able to keep Gabe Vincent, and he would be a very solid backup point guard who fits with both Austin and Bruce Brown, depending on who gets staggered in those lineups. And again, like I just don't think Bruce Brown shouldn't cost you a first rounder right now. I know that they turned down offers of this is one of my favorite leaks of all time, is like Team X turned down a trade proposal of multiple first rounders for player Y, and we never get any detail on like what kind of first rounder it is, unless it's a great first rounder, right? Like the trade proposals for like Larry Markkinen, I think it became known after the fact, or no, it was for Caruso, that the Chicago Bulls turned down a pick that would have been a top 10 pick in this year's draft for Caruso. Stupid. You can never put it past the Chicago Bulls for being incredibly stupid. But more often than not, when you get those leaks, it's never like the detail of, yeah, they turned down multiple first rounders. Yeah, one of them was top 25 protected. The other one was top 26 protected. And both of those would become, conditional second rounders as well. Like we never get the protection on what that trade would actually be. We're just always told how many first rounders team X turned down for player Y. And sometimes it's legit. Like sometimes you do like, it would make some sense that Mikal Bridges was getting crazy offers and he eventually went for a crazy offer. In this case, I think Bruce Brown probably was going to fetch Toronto maybe a legit first rounder last year. They decided to hold on to him. And now, because of the way that the market has gone, because of how much money he makes, and because of how much money he's going to be looking to make after this season, teams are reluctant to trade for him. And the Lakers might be reluctant to trade for him too for those reasons. So, but still, if all you're focused on is winning now, then trading for Bruce Brown, trading, a couple second rounders and D'Angelo Russell and Rui for Bruce Brown is a perfectly fine outcome here. And if you can hold on to Rui and send out D'Lo and Jalen Hood-Schifino and one of your minimum salary players, say Cam Reddish, and Masai Ujiri decides he's going to be the person that finally figures out Cam Reddish, even better. In that case, I would offer up a couple more second rounders to be able to hold on to Rui. But Bruce Brown, to me, of the trade targets that I've heard that the Lakers are interested in, Bruce Brown, to me, makes the absolute most sense because of the position he plays, the skill set he offers, and the fact that we know 100% with 100% certainty that dude is a 16-win performer. The Lakers need more of those. Speaking of 16 wins, somebody who won 16 important games in the bubble is the next guy on my list. Thank you guys for reminding me. Kyle Kuzma comes in at third for me. I would give up a first rounder for him. The fact that he will likely only cost one first rounder in this market is certainly intriguing. He is on an incredible contract that is actually going down in annual earnings year over year. So like he's on a great contract. He's a guy that can win in LA. He's a guy that wants to be a Laker again. There are some fit concerns because especially at this point in his career, he's probably more of a 4. And LeBron James is definitely a 4. So you have some concerns there. Ideally, if you trade for Kyle Kuzma, I have to look at Kyle Kuzma contract. No, not Kazuma. Kyle Kuzma contract. So he signed, again, just a really cool contract for the team. I don't know how thrilled he is to actually make less money per year, but he comes in at about 23.5. So basically those same kind of trade proposals that we were talking about for Bruce Brown, think of it the same way for Kyle Kuzma, but add a first rounder to it because you have 2 more years of team control on a contract that, again, de-escalates. I really love what Kuz would bring to the table. I thought he was totally underrated by the time he was traded. I was livid that it was, that the Lakers traded for the worst player. I guess I take that back. The worst player in that trade was Montrezl Harrell. But the Lakers traded for the second worst player in that trade, gave up 2 legitimate bona fide playoff impact players, and gave up draft capital for Russell Westbrook. It's a fireable trade in and of itself. But the Lakers would be able to, now it would be kind of doubling down on a mistake there, I guess, if you want to look at it in that way. But I personally would be 100% happy giving up a first rounder, maybe like a second, and maybe a conditional second after that, whatever contracts that you need to send over. Ideally here, you would send Rui and D'Lo for Kuz. You open up a bunch of salary, and, with the amount of salary that they'd be able to open, you'd be able to bring in Gary Trent Jr. If you're able to send Rui, remember, this is a different front office than the one that drafted Rui and traded Rui in the first place. So you have that kind of going for you a little bit. But the reason I would say I would prefer to give up Rui here is because, Kuz is certainly more offensive minded than defensive minded. And I would like to be able to hold on to Vanderbilt to provide the defense for, those Kuz Vando lineups if they ever happened. That just seems to make the most sense to me. If you're able to somehow hold on to D'Lo and you're able to turn, say, Gabe and Rui into Kuz, that would be 29 mil going out, and 23.5 coming in. That would, help the Lakers, give them a little breathing room under the now hard cap that they would face. As soon as you would, once the Lakers aggregate multiple contracts in a trade, they would be hard capped under the second apron, which again doesn't change anything. They consider themselves hard capped under that second apron anyway. But Kuz to me comes in at third for a player I am most interested in. Next player here is Jerami Grant. Jerami Grant, now he is going to cost you the most. The Portland Trailblazers are adamant, still, I'm told, that it's going to take 2 first-rounders to trade for Jerami Grant. They also don't want D'Angelo Russell's contract, so you have to find a third team that takes on D'Lo because they have so many guards over there. I have heard a construction of the trade that has been thrown out there and bandied about by both parties here, that would involve both Jared Vanderbilt and Rui Hachimura, for Jerami Grant. Man, I would like to be able to hold on to one of those wings personally. So if possible, I would like to find a third team for D'Lo. It's just been really difficult dating back to last year to find a third team for D'Angelo Russell. So, whatever it would look like, it is going to cost you multiple first rounders. And for that reason, I don't think that the Lakers are going to wind up trading for Jerami Grant. But all that said, Grant is a legit shooter at this stage of his career. He has, at various points of his career, been a legit defensive presence. So he has the potential to be that 3-and-D presence that the Lakers just kind of desperately need. And if they were able to pull that off, fantastic, cool, awesome. Especially if they're able to pull it off while sending D'Lo to a third team, and if they're somehow able to trade for Jerami Grant and only give up 1 first rounder, which again, I am told by the people who I've spoken to, especially around the league and especially close to the Portland Trailblazers, not happening. But if you're able to do that, then Jerami Grant would be a hell of an addition to a team that needs his skill set. Like he kind of combines, Vando's little things and defense for you combine that type of player with somebody like Rui, who at times last year was a knockdown 3-point shooter as well. Jerami Grant has worked on his game and evolved as a player to the point where he has some on-ball chops as well. So he would help you with second units there too. And he's done, some winning in his career, which I think kind of matters to me. So Jerami Grant comes in at 4th. He, however, is of the players that I've heard that the Lakers are interested in. Grant feels right now like the least likely of the bunch. Next player here on the list is Dorian Finney-Smith. He is a legit defensive presence. Just absolutely gets after it on that side of the ball. Some questions about, he apparently has a great shot diet, gets a lot of wide open opportunities, but hasn't been able to knock those shots down. As somebody who has watched players who could shoot show up to the Lakers and then forget how to shoot, somebody who has struggled to shoot recently, showing up to the Lakers makes me incredibly nervous. The thing with the Nets is that they are demanding a first rounder for Dorian Finney-Smith, and I just don't think he's worth a first rounder. So if the Lakers were somehow able to trade whatever contracts that you need to send over there and some second round draft capital, then okay, I'm willing to entertain those types of offers and that kind of outcome here. But in terms of the sending out a first for a player who, let's see, he has this year and next year on his contract. He is on a great contract. He only makes, a shade under 15 mil this year. So you'd be able to send D'Lo for him. And if you're sending D'Lo in a first for Dorian Finney-Smith, I would hope that you get Day'Ron Sharpe back. I know that the Lakers have asked about that type of player coming back. And if you do get Sharpe back, it makes it that much easier to send away Jackson Hayes and a second rounder, Jackson Hayes and Cam Reddish in the second rounder to be able to open up the taxpayer mid-level exception to be able to maybe sign Gary Trent Jr. as well. So you would, in essence, would be turning D'Angelo Russell and Jackson Hayes and Cam Reddish and a first rounder and a second rounder, and you'd be turning all of that into Dorian Finney-Smith and Day'Ron Sharpe and Gary Trent Jr. That would be a fine offseason to me. That would be, I wouldn't go so far as to say mission accomplished, or if you are going to do the mission accomplished thing, it would be George W. Bush with the mission accomplished thing behind him. But it would be a pretty damn good offseason considering how late all of the work would be done. But Dorian Finney-Smith, the last time we saw Finney-Smith, he was giving the Lakers real issues defensively and is very much capable of doing that. Yeah, he's on the other side of 30 at this stage of his career. And yes, there are some concerns about his ability to shoot the ball, but defensively, the guy gets after it. And the Lakers, really need more guys who get after it on that side of the ball. So Finney-Smith comes in at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. All right. The last name on here before I get to some of the names that you guys are giving me in the comment section. And by the way, I see them. I've seen that we are at 100 comments. I promise I will get to as many of those as I can, especially the super comments. But the final name on my list is Cam Johnson. Now, I've been told that the Nets are the most open to negotiation for Cam Johnson because of his contract. It is not pretty, and he hasn't been able to stay healthy. So tough combination for Cam Johnson. Next year, he will be making 23.6 mil. The next year after that, he makes 21.5. And then the year after that, he makes again 23.6. Super weird contract there. I just want to see really quick the guarantees on his deal before we move on too far. But all right, so yeah. Yeah, I'm not seeing any non-guarantees there. So if you're trading for Cam Johnson, you're going to send out the commensurate contracts like we've talked about with Bruce Brown, like we talked about with Jerami Grant. Jerami Grant would cost more contracts. So like it would be at this point, because the Lakers are now above the first apron for Grant, that trade would probably have to be Rui and Vando and JHS and maybe another minimum on top of that. Just something to keep in mind. But for Cam Johnson, it would be D'Lo, and it would be for Cam Johnson, I would probably try to trade Rui instead of Vando. And Rui and Vando would, or Rui and D'Lo would get you there by themselves. If you can send Rui and Gabe out for Cam Johnson, I would try to do that, and then bring in Gary Trent Jr. and then maybe also try to scour the market for a Vincent replacement. But like Johnson, the concern with him is he got to Brooklyn and stopped defending. Like he just doesn't do that anymore. Now he's still capable of it. He's only 28 years old. He's actually a little older than I thought he was going to be. He came out of Carolina a little older. So, but he is nice and tall, great catch and shoot type of threat. Again, you have those injury concerns, and that's part of like the reason I'm not interested in him. And the contract just isn't great. So if you trade a first rounder for Cam Johnson and it doesn't work out, you are stuck with Cam Johnson. And that's why Brooklyn probably isn't going to get a first for him. So if you're able to turn, a few second rounders, say Jalen Hood-Schifino and D'Angelo Russell, and maybe a first into it, like, all right, like that's a little more intriguing to me than different versions of the trade. But I tend to think that you would have to send out more rotation minutes for him. And two, the whole time he's there, I'm going to be sitting there like white knuckling on my chair, just begging, please stay healthy, please stay healthy, please stay healthy. And I just don't know if I would gamble on the Lakers, medical team to try to keep a guy like that healthy. Like you have guys who show up relatively healthy and they just miss entire years for bruises. Cam Johnson would show up to the Lakers with a bad injury history, and that would make me very, very nervous. So Cam Johnson, of the players that to this point have been mentioned or leaked, or who I've heard most closely tied to the Lakers, Cam Johnson comes in at 6th, pretty far behind everybody else. All right, we do have one starred comment here that comes in from Justin Tyndall, who writes, Jeannie doesn't show any allegiance to Bron and AD, no allegiance to the fan base, but she does to Rob. It's a fucking joke. Jesse and Joey have done more this summer than Pelinka. I guess that's probably objectively true. Although, like, they barely scouted Dalton Connect because they didn't think he would be available to him. So I don't know if that's even necessarily true. And that nobody, like the Lakers, didn't scout Bronny because they were going to draft Bronny anyway. So I don't even know if like anybody has done a whole ton of work this year. Like it really said something to me that in that video where Rob Pelinka is calling either the league or Bronny to tell whoever it was that the Lakers were drafting Bronny in that second round, it was a look at their war room. And it was just like really unimpressive. I'm hoping that was just a conference room and the war room looked a little bit better than that. Like I've been meaning to ask and I just keep forgetting because there's been so much else going on. But it really said like that said a lot to me. And the fact that after the Lakers drafted Dalton Connect, Rob in the middle of a first round in the NBA draft where like you should be having conversations with everybody about possibilities, Rob steps out then to take a victory lap for picking up a $20 bill that floated by him. Like that was really, really telling of a guy who is looking for any win whatsoever to be able to go out there and run a victory lap for. But yeah, as far as like allegiance to the fan base, I do always feel the need to offer this little bit of nuance. Jeannie does care greatly about the fan base. She just thinks that Rob Pelinka is the guy for the job and the guy who will do right by the fan base because of blind spots. And hell, like Rob did after the Lakers didn't get Kawhi Leonard, he did rebound very, very well to put together a roster that would eventually win a championship. Now, I would say fair critique there is for once, execute plan A. B, maybe don't rip that whole team up by the floorboards over the next 3 years, completely ignoring what made that team special. But I do think, though, like when it comes to Jeannie, I do legitimately believe that what she cares about most is winning, as controlling governor of the Los Angeles Lakers for the Lakers fan base. Like that genuinely really matters to her. How she goes about executing on those wishes, that obviously is very much up for debate, which obviously we do a ton of here. All right, I'm going to scroll through the comments here really, really quickly just to see if I missed anything, any players that I should have. David Portillo asking about Trey. He's not on the Lakers' radar from what I've heard. Kessler and Sexton from Paul Flanagan. Kessler, they are asking, like there was a report today, again, one of my favorite kinds of reports, that the Jazz turned down a offer of multiple first rounders for Walker Kessler. I just like typically joke that it's really difficult to get white guys out of Utah. Colin Sexton, I guess, is on the Lakers' radar. The concern with all of those guys, Laurie, Kessler, Sexton, and on down that roster, is that like it's actually like an okay roster. And I know that they are very much going to be trying to tank for Cooper Flag eventually. But over the last couple seasons, they haven't started years that way. And then over the course of the season, they eventually start selling off pieces. And I think for Utah, I do think there's a possibility that the Lakers trade some contracts into their cap space to free up a little bit of financial flexibility, not just in the immediate future for somebody like Gary Trent Jr., but also for like, over the course of the year, being able to operate a little bit further away from the second apron. But Sexton is an interesting one. I just don't think the point guard is really a position of need for me, especially somebody like Sexton, who I have real questions about his shot. So I don't think that Sexton is I'm sure they've had conversations about Sexton. But I think most of the conversations that Danny Ainge and Rob Pelinka have had to this point have been about, getting off of D'Angelo Russell's contract and what it would take for Utah to take that in. Let's see. Hoopers is saying that the stream is freezing. Well, you're watching on Twitter. You should watch on YouTube and subscribe. Let's see. Any concerns about Brown's 3-point shooting declining in Toronto? Obviously, there are some concerns there. I do think that, just in general, Bruce Brown played the best basketball of his life in that series against the Lakers. And, I don't think it's a coincidence that the following offseason, the Lakers tried hard to go out and get Bruce Brown. But I think the nice thing about Brown is if his shot isn't going in, and you do need it eventually to go in. So that is the concerns are fair. I'm not saying that they aren't fair, but because of how he defends, because of what he can do on the ball as a secondary or tertiary creator, you can get away with some of the, off shooting nights. It's the guys that like the Buddy Hields of the world or the Malik Beasleys of the world who, all they do is shoot. Those are the guys that I think the Lakers and the league in general have really kind of cooled on. Because if those guys aren't knocking down shots, they are worthless. And if not I would take it a step beyond worthless. They are actively detrimental to you because the other team is going to be trying to take advantage of them defensively. You can't do that to Bruce Brown. and with his rebounding and everything, like, and I just like I just like the way the guy is wired. Like, he's a big game guy, big personality. I think he would do really well in LA. He just makes a whole bunch of sense to me. Let's go. Yeah, so I'm trying to see. Yeah, I'm trying to see any other names, and I don't think I'm seeing it. I saw somebody bring up Brook Lopez. I don't think the Bucks are just going to trade Brook Lopez away for draft capital, just because they're still trying to win. And I wouldn't give up a first rounder for a Brook Lopez at this stage of his career. So, I'm good. I think that's it. I think that's where I'm going to cut this one off here. Slightly shorter episode here, as there isn't as much to talk about. Lee is asking about Wendell Carter. I mentioned him yesterday. It's funny. I mentioned him yesterday as somebody that the Orlando Magic love, right? I've been told up and down by people I talk to around the league that Wendell Carter Jr. is absolutely beloved in Orlando. And then we get, reports that that he is basically like off limits. And what does Bomani say? Listen to me now, believe me later, or something like that. It's just one of those things that, like, the Magic love that dude, and for good reason. I liked him coming out of the draft. I thought he was an actual badass, like, in Chicago, especially that first summer league. I remember walking around summer league telling everybody, this dude is going to be great. This guy, maybe not great, but really effing good. And I think he's reached really effing good. I don't think he is great. I don't know if he's ever going to be great, but I do think he would be an absolute stud for as an addition to the Lakers. All right, so yeah, that is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lowdown podcast. I'll be right back here again tomorrow, or sooner, if we get any kind of breaking news. Until then, and until the next time you guys hear from us, please hit the subscribe button. I think we're at like 4,100 now. I would like to get to 5,000 before this offseason is over. So any help that we get there, I would really appreciate. I would also ask for subscriptions wherever it is that you get your podcast. 5-star reviews are also really helpful. And then tell your friends about the show. That stuff really matters. And until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin saying, have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you mañana.